Do I have a motion to, well, let's do a roll call first. Yeah, Sherry, will you take roll call?
Mr. Bruno? Here. Ms. Holder? Mr. Casillas?
Here.
Ms. Makowski?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Lair?
Here.
Ms. Beislin?
Here.
Dr. K?
Here.
Ms. Sanders? Mr. Mast? Mr. Nadrozny? Mr. Hill?
Here. Fantastic, we have a quorum. Next is the approval of agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Walker Kosofsky. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. We are convening our Board Policy Committee today, Thursday, September 11th. Part to get caught up on past issues that we have reviewed actually at this committee on numerous occasions, some that have gone to the board, and some that have been updated since the last time we reviewed those things. I want to welcome Angie Powell. She's one of the executive directors from the Illinois Association of School Board. Angie was really critical in working with the board for a number of years in getting our old policy manual moved to the online policy manual, and we've invited her to come and help us get caught up on the issues that we are behind on right now and we need to review. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to Angie so she can help facilitate this work.
All right, thank you so much, and thanks for having me so that I can help you out and answer any questions that you have about any of these pending draft updates for your policy manual to get it back up to date. So as Dan mentioned, some of these have been here for a while, so you may have seen them. However, some of them may be a little bit newer as we work to get your policy manual up to date at this time. So I am here logged in to your Press Plus account. So if you're a board member, you may not have seen this particular view before. This is where I can see the draft updates, and I just wanted to kind of show an overview of everything that's pending as we get started here, and then I'll move to the draft update downloads, which you may be more familiar with. So here's where we have everything that is currently pending, as I said, and this is a logged in view. So if you see, I've got a few that might be recommended for deletion. Then there are some from issues 114 through 119 of Press Plus that are pending here. And so they're grouped in some different ways, and we can group them in a number of different ways to help facilitate moving forward. So does anyone have any questions for me kind of before we really just dive in? No? So I was thinking that it might be a good idea to start with some of the policies that are have the older pending changes, but also all related to Title IX non-discrimination coordinators and grievance procedures, and start there. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
Okay, so if we look at some of those policies, some of them are very, have been customized for your district. So I want to draw your attention to anything that ends with a policy number ending in a 2, 4, 6, or 8 is not based on a press sample policy. So in talking with Dan recently, I have gotten the impression that you're thinking about moving more toward press samples and away from these customized policies. So what I've done is I have prepared, if we went this direction, then we would want to delete the ones that are customized. Right now, this one has a couple of updates from Press, as you can see with the Press Plus comments. Press Plus comment 1, sorry about that, says, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the right one. That if the board would prefer to adopt the press sample materials regarding non-discrimination and grievance procedures, then this unique policy would be recommended for deletion. This policy's content is unique to the district, and this is the comment that you would get from Press Plus for these unique policies. It is not based on a press sample policy. Please consult the author to determine necessary changes. So if we don't go the route of deleting this policy and moving toward the press samples, this policy may not be up to date at this point in response to the state of Tennessee versus Cardona, which struck down the 2024 Title IX regulations. So my point being, if we did move toward all of the press samples, then all of your Title IX and non-discrimination grievance-related policies would then be up to date in accordance with this new case that did restore the 2020 Title IX regulations. Does that make sense? Any questions
Yes.
on that? So here in this packet, this PDF packet here, I have recommended for deletion then 114 and 2262, which are the customized unique policies. And then I have press sample versions of all of the other policies that are related. So 2260, the uniform grievance procedure, you'll see it now says draft update rewritten. And that is taking it back to the press sample version that is up to date and in alignment with current requirements. Because they are rewritten, right now, the non-discrimination coordinator, Title IX coordinator, and complaint manager lines are blank. So as you submit this policy through the Press Plus site, there is actually, those links are not working. There is a form now. This is kind of new. There's a form where you can, when you're logged in, I'm logged in right now, but when you're logged in, it'll take you straight to Champaign. I, of course, can select all out of districts. It'll take you straight to Champaign, though, when you're logged in, and you can enter that information and let me know which policies it applies to. These are all the ones that need this information, and then just submit it that way, and that'll get these up to date really quickly. And then anytime you need to make changes to these names because of, staffing changes, that type of thing, the changes just to the names and contact information does not require board action. But of course, adoption of the rewritten policy itself does require board action. Any questions about that? So like I said, these particular rewritten ones are new to your dashboard, so you have not seen these yet at the board table. But there's policy 2260, then 2262 for deletion, 2265 is the Title IX grievance procedure, currently up to date. This one needs the Title IX coordinator contact information, and again, that'll just come from that form. And then we've got policy 510 in the personnel section that also contains the information. Policy 520. 710 doesn't contain the contact names and contact information, but it does point to all of the other policies. It does, at this time, reference 114 and 2262, but if we were to delete those, then we would also remove those cross-references. Then we've got also in section 7 for students, again, the contact information that ties everything together. And and the last one in this packet that's also rewritten to replace the district unique customized version that was previously there is the bullying policy, which this one is completely up to date in alignment with everything that ISB requires to be submitted every other year. So that's a brief overview of this particular grouping. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about those?
Is this just review today?
Yeah, like all of our policies that we review at Policy Committee, it's just for review. Yes,
Yeah, so I
absolutely.
can answer any of your questions and make sure everyone is on the same page with everything before it goes to the board for adoption.
Okay, because it's the little, so, and I apologize, it's probably me, and it's just been a very busy day. When Sherry shared out everything, so like all my paperwork is set up to look at 114, what's still outstanding, 115, 116. So
have
where
that
is this
too.
fitting in? Now I'm really confused about where we're at.
116. These are policies that were
Well-
part of, except for 114.
Well, are you talking about Press Plus Issue 116? So Press Plus Issue 116, what it did was update the Title IX materials to the 2024 Title IX regulations, and then subsequently, it was struck down by State of Tennessee versus Cardona. And so then in issues 117 and 118, those things were reversed. Not 117. In 118, those things were reversed. And so these versions are just they're completely up to date, whereas the previous versions that you saw in your packet were district unique. And so Press was not able to update them because we can only update things that are aligned with our sample materials. So it just kind of had a note, please consult the author of this policy and work on the updates. But this is just another option that I'm presenting to you in addition to those. So it's a potential to replace those.
And that part of it, I understand, it felt like, wait, where am I? And I'm in the policy a lot, so I'm like, wait, what's going on here? What are we talking about?
What we gave to everyone prior to this meeting was a Press Plus Issue kind of chronological order of the updates. Since it would be kind of disjointed if we talked about those issue by issue, because of what Angie just described, she's summarizing this to get us up to speed on what the current recommendation is based upon the most recent legislative changes.
Right.
And so that's why it feels a little bit different. It's in there, it's just in a different order. I'm actually just following along on our current policy, because that way I can kind of reference that way. But I've asked Angie to kind of walk through us. It's in that packet. Everything that we have it's in there. It's just she's gonna run through these policy updates in a way that makes sense, because there may be some other policies that were updated in 14 that we didn't adopt that changed again, and subsequent issues that we need to get up to speed on.
Right. And I don't want to be weird about this. It's just Title IX is such an incredibly important sort of cultural piece in this district that I don't want to just like blow through a conversation on it. I mean, it does, there's a lot of things that Title IX is going to touch, Title VI is going to touch, how we operate as a district, sort of our fundamental belief system as a district. So I don't want to just like rush through it to say, oh yeah, okay, is everybody fine? And then boom, that's what we've adopted, or what, that's what we're going to throw in front of the board without just sort of taking a moment to acknowledge that this is a really important set of policies.
Yeah, so specific to Title IX, for those that were kind of following along with policy discussions, mid-year last year, we brought forward a custom policy that didn't adopt Press's 2270. And instead, we adopted 520. We proposed to adopt 520, which really talked about Title IX as it related to personnel, and a custom policy 720 as it related to Title IX and students. As we discussed this, and there were questions at the board, and we chose not to adopt those recommendations, there was legislation that happened, right? So the Title IX things got reversed. And so those custom policies that we had kind of put forward, that we spent a lot of time discussing in policy committee and in the board, are no longer relevant. And so now we're looking at what existed before those recommendations had come forward. And that's what we're reviewing here today, specific to this area.
And I don't believe I saw the ones that you're referring to that were in discussion.
No, they never made it. They never made it to you. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm looking at 114. So what is it that we're suggesting we're going to bring forward based on this policy, knowing that they're interconnected within other spaces within the policy manual?
Well, at this time, I do want to bring your attention to the fact that 114, it's customized. It may not be up to date with the current
So we would have to
Title IX.
update this
So it
to
would
get
need to be updated on, so your choices would be to continue to update 114, 2262, 2260, 2265, 510, 520, 710, 720, and 7180 on your own, whenever there are necessary legislative changes, or to move toward the press samples, which can still be customized, but the more that you're aligned toward the press samples, the more that you're going to be able to stay up to date with legislative changes in a more timely manner.
So do we have a version of what presses?
I have brought those today, and they are now at your dashboard. So I don't believe they've been distributed to the group, though.
So which dashboard?
I think it's
You
the-
probably can't.
Yeah, but you're going to show,
Yeah, it's kind of spinning, so I don't know if I've
Your press, all of the
lost.
board members have a press log, and you'll be able to see what that is. You maybe have to do a one-by-one tutorial.
I'm just kind of spinning, so I don't know if my, it says it went, okay.
So
just took a while, that's
ultimately-
fine. Thank you.
kind of on the table right now is reviewing the press version of Title IX, seeing what is similar or different than the current custom district policy, and determining if we want to adopt the press draft as it is, that will automatically update with legislation and recent court cases that may impact the policy, versus us having to go backwards and neglect making updates to things that are out of date or no longer relevant
Right,
on an ongoing basis, which
Right.
we've caught ourselves in the district years and years ago, which is why we moved to press to begin with.
right. And technically, the ones that end in a 2, 4, 6, or 8, we generally, and I have for this purpose of this meeting, but we generally don't put those on your dashboard at all. So those would be completely the responsibility of the district to make sure that they're staying up to date.
So do non-board members have, because I have a login to the actual hardcore press stuff.
Yeah, that's where you would get to this.
Okay, so I can use that login to get, okay, do other people?
We have,
Because-
So most people have just this login here, it's not a login, this is the current policy manual. So this is as adopted today.
Correct.
But then what I'm accessing is the draft updates that are pending for updating the manual.
yeah, so at this level, it's Sherry, myself, you, and the reason we do this is because once you're in here, you can actually make edits.
Yeah.
to the policies, and so we don't want a lot of people accidentally doing some things that, would change our online policy.
Yeah, we don't have board members accessing this at any district in the state. So board members do not have access because you can only update the policies at a board meeting, right? And then someone in the administrative office needs to log in and send to IASB what the board's decision was at that open board meeting.
But you do have access to the press, which is what the policy will. It just won't say Champaign.
Yes, they just won't say Champaign Unifor, and they will have additional footnote information at press. If, board members are always welcome to log in and view that. The samples that have all of the legal reference and footnoted information. But here at your Press Plus site, what we do is just relevant to the changes that have been made. We add comments explaining the changes. So you'll see not the full footnotes of the entire policy, but just the information related to the updates.
So Sherry just shared by email all of this stuff, so you should be able to access it that way.
Okay, so this group is the two that would be recommended for deletion.
Yes.
And under rewritten, the ones that are relevant to Title IX. So they either say press sample or 2265 had already been presented as rewritten in your original packet with issue 118. So that one's not new. Any other questions on that? Do we want to move to a different topic?
Everyone good with Title IX? Understanding kind of what we're doing now?
Okay.
I think we move forward.
All right, so the next grouping that I have is just the oldest ones that are pending. So the first one we have here is 2270, which Dan had mentioned. This is a newly required policy to comply with the Racism-Free Schools Act. So we've got, this policy is created in response to the Racism-Free Schools Law. And so this one is pending from March of 2024. And it's just completely new. It was not included in the manual before. So, and I believe this one has been at the board table already. So it's got lots of comments since it is new, explaining the requirements of the policy. But does anyone have any questions for me? If not, then the next one in this older group is 470 in section 4 on resource conservation. And so it just had kind of a minor update in response to it being reviewed, a 5-year review at press. So with the press samples, what we do is we don't let any policy go more than 5 years without having a substantial review by our entire press advisory board, in addition to our internal staff. So this one was up for 5-year review because it didn't have any substantive changes based on updated law. So we just did these updates, for example, to remove an outdated date, that kind of thing. So this is a very minor update here.
So one of the new processes for the committee and our guest, when we moved to the online policy manual and began subscribing to press services, the Press Plus services, we created a process to, on a 5-year basis, make sure that we review every policy. What we found with our old policy manual, if you guys recall, we had decades old policies from the 80s, 90s, right, when we updated. This process allows us to at least review every process, even if there aren't significant legislative changes that, are calling for overwhelming reforms. We're going to take a look at it and see if it makes sense. And if it does, then we're going to note that we reviewed it and we'll update the date.
And update the date so that you're not getting into that situation where they're getting so old, yeah.
Suzanne?
Dan, I have a question. So, and I understand the role of this committee is like we're reviewing policy and we're taking that to the board, right, for them to approve. So are the board members, like, have they been informed that we're basically going with press now? Or are they gonna want to, like, when these, recommended policies get to them, are they gonna want to tweak them again? Because then we go right back to customizing.
Well,
You
I mean,
know, I guess we're-
the vast majority of our policy is a reflection of press.
Correct.
The vast majority. So it's not anything new that we're going with press. Title IX, our uniform grievance procedure
Those are the.
for decision, those were the two big items that contained a suite of policies that we decided as a district years ago we were going to be customized. Part of it was we had spent a lot of, before we went to the online policy manual and the Press Plus subscription, we had gone through this customization for those areas. And so we didn't feel like we just wanted to abandon that work just because we updated and moved to the online policy manual, so we kept it. There have been legislative changes since that have, that contradict what our policy is. And so it's not necessarily like we're just going with press, because we certainly have the ability to customize any policy as needed. So that discussion will always be part of the policy committee before we make a recommendation to the board.
So what made me ask this is the policy that we just had up, the racism-free schools one.
Yep.
And it had a list of like non-discrimination, like, to me, like, I know in some of this work on this committee, we've included maybe other groups or other things, right? We don't discriminate on the basis of other things, right? We might add in ability or disability or things like that. So I guess that's why I'm asking, because
So this policy is specifically on the racism-free schools law, but there are certainly many policies throughout the manual that talk about that other types of discrimination as well.
That was part of the debate we got into when we said we were going to
and I'm looking at my
customize
colleagues around the
520
table.
and 720.
Remember when we were, yes.
And that's where we couldn't come to agreement, particularly when we brought this to the board about that, right? We started to incorporate
So-
items that,
That's my point.
that Angie
Are we
had
being
talked about.
inclusive, or so that's my point.
What was when this went to the board previously, because it did leave our committee to go to the board, right, for approval, and it wasn't adopted at that point. What, did they cite their hesitation, or what was their feedback to why it was not approved or adopted?
Can I step in just real quick? So to your point, Angie?
Yes.
Sorry, Sarah, and I'm so sorry I was late. I'm Sarah Sanders. I'm the principal over at Centennial. Thank you for
No problem. Thank you.
understanding. Where we got into the debate, which I don't know how it got to that point, but when this was talking about racism, race
Right.
specifically. And to your point, there are other discriminatory, policies that deal with discrimination. And so that, we were really trying to differentiate. Those are two different things. I mean, obviously, they can bleed into each other, but those were two very different things, is how we felt,
Yes.
I think, as a group, but.
So this policy, like I said, specifically is created in response to the racism-free schools law, so that, that law requires school districts to have a written policy in place. And this policy has been, written by press, vetted by the Press Advisory Board, members throughout the state, as being in compliance with that law. So that's why we provide that to you as a way to come into compliance with that law. And then, again, like I said, the entire suite of those policies, like it says, this new policy utilizes the existing complaint process in sample policy 2260, which I've also provided as rewritten, so that everything is in alignment and all works together as a package.
Yeah, and that's where it gets tricky, because there's a suite of policies that all work together. And we were customizing, there was a domino effect, right? And how one affected the other, how affected the other. And there wasn't the alignment that
Right.
press provides, in short, and there was a lot of confusion. This policy also got confused with our racial equity policy that the committee had drafted, which was something very different, and I think misunderstood. And so we spent a lot of time discussing the racial equity policy at the board, and we just couldn't come to consensus that it was something that they were ready to adopt. Yeah. Okay to move forward with everyone? All right. Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay, so sometimes in a press issue, the only changes are to the legal references, which is the case in this one. An additional legal reference was added. Some of the rest of these are actually reordered. So there's nothing substantive here other than legal reference updates to just keep your policies, again, in alignment with press samples and up to date with the latest legislation. This next one actually has such a minor change. The coding changed on this legal reference from 95 to 96, and that's it. That's the whole change. We do have a comment here just giving some additional information, but this additional information here didn't affect the text of the policy. So the text of the policy is unchanged here. Okay, again, more legal references in the homeless, education of homeless children policy. Now, sometimes we have a board exhibit, so these are not the same as policies. Of course, they support the board's work, so this is a checklist for filling board vacancies, just it's a reference material that has been previously implemented into the board's policy into the board's policy manual. The only reason it's rewritten is because there were so many changes that it would have been very, very time consuming for our staff to provide each of the tiny changes. They were very minor changes, but we provided it as rewritten so that the board can now implement the most up-to-date version. So the comment explains that it's rewritten for Press Plus. Minor updates were made in response to a 5-year review. If you are interested in seeing the redlined version showing the actual changes, it is available at Press Online. The most recent 4 Press issues are available online. So right now, if you went to Press Online, you could see issue 119, 18, 17, and 16. So actually 115 is no longer available, and we are getting ready to release issue 120 by the end of October as well. So a note that this line is now out of date. It's no longer available online because it has been more than 4 press issues ago. But
Angie,
you
would
can
you-
always go to your dashboard and see your board's recent version and compare it that way. So if you go here, it shows you your currently implemented version from 2022, and then the one that's in your packet is the updated version.
Will you explain to the committee, you just described an exhibit and how it complements a policy. We also have procedures, particularly as it relates to Section 2, the board section, why we have our administrative procedures in our administrative procedures manual And not, and separate from our policy manual.
Yeah, absolutely. So the policy manual, of course, is board work, and that is the board's voice. That is what the board adopts. The board adopts through policy, the board's mission, vision, values, and direction for the district. And so throughout the policy manual, you'll see many, 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 many times, the superintendent shall, the superintendent shall, the superintendent or designee shall, and then that's the board's voice delegating authority to the superintendent and staff to then go forth and create those procedures that carry out what the board has directed the district to do through policy. So those procedures then, like I said, the board delegates authority through policy to create those procedures. So then we want to keep those procedures separate. First of all, because the procedures do not require board action, those, the superintendent and staff have discretion to keep up to date kind of in a more timely manner, a little bit more quickly without going through the board adoption process so that those can stay up to date and in alignment with the board policies though. So the first step would be for the board to adopt policy, and then after that, then the superintendent and staff would go through and update the procedures in accordance and in alignment with what the board has adopted in policy. So they work together, but they're separate because the board policy manual is board work, whereas the administrative procedures manual is district work.
Thank you for that explanation. Any questions on that from anybody? Awesome. All right.
So the only exhibits that you'll see in the board policy manual are board work. So there are a few pieces that are actually board work, even if they have an E, for example, checklist for filling board vacancies, that is the work of the board. We've got guidelines for serving as a mentor to a Board of Education member. So that's, of course, board work. So if it's board work, then the board has the opportunity to include these exhibits to help them support their work in the board policy manual. But 99% of exhibits are going to be supporting the work of the staff, and they'll be found in the administrative procedures manual. Okay, so let's see if I can find my spot. There we go. Next, we have in section 4, accounting and audits. We had an update here. Scroll down to the comment real quick. That dollar amount was updated in response to a change, and the minimum threshold is different, so we've updated that. And then you can see each Press Plus comment explains the reason for the proposed changes for you to adopt. Any questions on this one? Okay. So policy 5100, this one has changes for a few different reasons, and again, they're explained in the Press Plus comments. Scroll down a little bit. Some of the changes were related to Title IX, but kind of in a less substantive way, just in the reference to it. So we've got changes in response to the school code. We've got changes in response to trauma responsive learning environments, and the whole child. And then also some changes in relation to the ESS law. But this policy is related to training requirements for staff. And that's it for issues 114 and 115. There's not a packet for issue 116. Again, the only changes in that policy, or in that issue, were pretty much reversed. So they're no longer needed. Okay. Issue 117 is from October 2024. This is just a clarification change to just clarify that we're talking about district business here. Board member development had changes in response to legislation changes. So again, just stop me if you have any questions or want further clarification on anything.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
You went through a 57-page PDF right there, right?
Yep.
Do I have that?
Yes.
Where's that?
Folder, in the
Go
folder.
under 117 in the folder. Okay. And if you go under draft policy changes, I think that's where we're at. And I am currently looking at page 11 of 78 on the PDF.
Okay,
And it should be 2120 board member development.
And the reason yours has 78, maybe because I pulled out the Title IX packet. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Right, when we're up to speed, kind of just doing one issue at a time, it makes the flow of kind of this process a lot easier to follow along. But yeah, no, if there are questions, ask them, right? This is a working committee, and, we should be comfortable having some discussion about things that may come up during the process of this meeting, so.
Absolutely. So the Press Plus comments, like I mentioned before, are going to explain everything that the board needs to know in order to make their decision on the policy. So if it starts with a legal reference, then you're going to know that the policy was updated in response to a legislative change. Now, sometimes there's going to be information about customization options. So here you have an option to add additional investments to the list, for example. And then also, it's going to differentiate between things that are required. So again, if it starts with a legal reference, that's a requirement. However, if something's optional, we're going to let you know that it's not required that that be included in policy. So sometimes things are required that you do it, but not required to be listed in policy. And sometimes it's just completely optional. And if you don't list it in policy, it means you don't have to do it. And so we'll be clarifying that. We'll be clarifying that throughout in the comments information.
Sherry, one thing we might want to do, so I'm in the PDF, can anybody else hit the hyperlinks? 'Cause I'm struggling, Sherry can open those hyperlinks.
No.
So what the hyperlinks should be going, it's not necessarily opening anything, but it should be jumping. Like if I click this Press Plus 5, it's jumping down to the Press Plus 5.
17, and then click on. There's two, the draft one.
Otherwise, the comments are always at the end. Oh, if you scanned it, then the hyperlinks will not work.
I don't know, I didn't want to wait.
Mine is different than Sherry's.
So you would have to jump from policy to policy because they're not numerical.
So what we're doing today is basically just re-reviewing what Sherry sent out. Nobody's making
Right.
decisions, we're not
Correct.
talking about any of this stuff. We're not.
I mean, you can talk about anything you want if you have, specific recommendations, if something's marked as optional and you want to recommend that it not be adopted, all that kind of thing. We can go in any direction here. We're just not taking any formal action today.
Right.
Just because it's so overwhelming, because there's so much, I'm wondering if we could narrow to like a couple of focus points that you guys want to look at. Like, if the world ended tomorrow, these are the two things you for sure want to take forward.
Well, the two most important things, in my opinion, are the Title IX suite, which we already discussed, and the uniform grievance procedure. Those are the two things that we absolutely, of course, we want to be in compliance. So
want to focus everybody's time today on really making sure we're focused on that to help move that process. Knowing this is part of why this is a little overwhelming at this particular moment in time is because there's 4 issues we're behind. And so things are building on building. And so maybe if we focus on the things for sure within the next, like, the world is going to end tomorrow scenario, what do you really want everybody's attention zeroed in on?
So we have 2 meetings set up in the next week, right? Today and then next week, Tuesday. So my hope is that we can get through the previous issues in that time period. As Angie indicated, end of October, which isn't too far away, we're going to have a fresh set of policies to review. Right, so I know the work seems overwhelming. If we need to pause at any one particular policy and get clarification, ask questions, that's what we should be doing.
Would it be, it seems as though, right, as we're going through these, Angie is letting us know what the changes have been. Some of them are pretty minimal, right? Like, when you look at this, what were we just looking
The
at?
legal updates, it's
Number, yeah.
Legal updates,
Here's
but if you
another
look,
one.
eliminating this.
430, did we already pass by 430? Mm-hmm. Like, there's the paragraph at the end that's underlined, I'm assuming that is new language.
Yes, that's
where
the
you can
one
deposit
that I was
money
just
and-
talking about. That's
Yep.
Yeah.
optional.
So I think
Well, the second sentence of it is optional.
is optional.
So let's look,
Some of these are pretty minor things. Some of these are larger things. The 2 larger ones are the ones that we've already discussed, though, right, Dan? We've kind of moved on from them. I don't know if everybody's aware that we moved on from them.
My take is there's 12 people in the room. We could find any one of these and probably argue about it if we wanted to for an hour, try to wordsmith and stuff. Maybe the safest thing to do, and I've never been on the committee before, so I apologize if I'm talking out of turn here, but adopt, kind of get to a default where we're adopting the universal press versions of most of these, kind of have that as our focus point. Let's try to get current with the understanding that we can always amend them in the future, but right now, the current status is not good. We're out of compliance on all of these, right? I mean, they're all, so we got to fix that problem. Feels like the first thing we got to do is splint the leg, and stop the bleeding, and then we can fix it later if we want to, change it later if we want to. So I'd be happy to just approve these press suggestions and revisit them when we have more.
And I don't want to minimize the impact of the changes to Title IX. Of course, that's a huge procedure that you have throughout, all of your buildings, all of your administrators will need to be made aware of the change. It's a major undertaking, so I don't want to minimize that, but I also want to stress, like you said, the importance of coming into compliance as well, so as quickly as possible.
So apart from the Title IX piece, is there anything in here that isn't just a easy peasy, it's just a citation?
That,
Does it make sense to do?
As far as more drastic changes to it have
Yeah,
occurred.
do we just simply say, to heck with it, adopt, get us current, and deal with it later, right? And then go back to being able to do the page by
Do
page
the
by page,
procedures.
page turner, the way we did before. So set the board up, get it straight, and then come back in and say, okay, so if there's questions in section 2, then the board can by committee, because by then we'll have been caught up on everything. We won't have to worry about the 16 different versions of stuff. Everybody can focus. And then just come back in and say, okay, you don't like that procedure, now that's something or that policy, that is something that we can talk about and focus on. Because right now, I think and again, I try to be reasonably and smart, sometimes I fail, but I am struggling right now to figure out where we're at. I got 6 tabs open, and I'm here, and I'm there, and I'm like, I got stacks of papers that I printed, so I could follow it that way.
I'm struggling more than you, so. But
Well,
we're out of
I'm happy to
compliance
help
now.
you in any way with getting, caught up with where we are and able to follow along. Because I do want, when this goes to the board, for the board to, of course, understand what they're adopting and the impact that it'll have on the district before we make those decisions. And I do want to help the board get up to date and in compliance with everything. I don't know, if there's another way we could go about this process of the meeting. I don't know if you've all reviewed the packets that Sherry sent out earlier, and if you have specific questions, I'm happy to take it that way and go to where your questions are immediately. I mean, I'm open to however you want to proceed here.
It's probably still helpful from implementation lens to know, to really emphasize the changes, right? Like, as I'm looking at, 4170 for safety, right? It's saying that an AED has to be in every single building at every single event, et cetera, et cetera. Like when by adopting that, then I think as a job of us, are we already there? Are we not? Like, what does that look like? Are we good?
That one we're good at.
That we're good. Like, we know we have an
We know we
AED
got
everywhere.
We're
And
already
so some of these are
replacing
real small
batteries.
potatoes, and it's just, yep, we got that already.
Yeah, let me just say this, right? Having gone through hundreds of hours of these meetings from the start to the finish, policy is a mundane process in a lot of ways, right? It's looking at what we currently have and determining, if the recommendations that press is making to us where we have to choose, right? There's going to be some policies that the board has to, here's one of them, right? We've got different options. It's our job as the committee to review these things and make sure that we're somewhat familiar. This meeting was scheduled to be from 1 to 3:30, and then we have one next week, right? We're stopping at 3:30 today, for sure. I just struggle to recommend us stopping and saying, hey, we're just gonna adopt everything and then figure it out later. I think we have enough time built in if we roll through this process, and I know it seems like we're going quick. What took the longest, quite honestly, in our adoption is when we decided we were going to veer from the press recommendations. And so my recommendation is, at least for the next hour and 6 minutes, or 36 minutes, we continue to roll through the process. If there's questions, we stop. For the next meeting, I know that there are going to be some policies that we want to discuss that aren't part of the press updates, right? Just things have come forward, right? And so just for the new members, for our guests, policy updates come for a number of reasons, right? We have press updates. We have practices that don't match our policies, and so we need to either change our practices or change our policies so that those things match. Or we have people that say, hey, I think we should do this, and it's going to require a policy, right? And so, although we're not doing that right now, and we're just focusing on the press updates, we're going to get to a point where that's what we do. And if you recall, some of the people that were on this committee for years, that was our only process. We only talked about things in a reactive manner. And we weren't systematically looking at our policies, which is why we got decades behind in many of them. And so my recommendation is we continue to move forward. If there's questions, stop, pause, and we get through as much as we can in the next hour and, a half here. Does anyone have objections to that? All right, continue, Angie.
Okay. So do we want to talk further about the option to add additional investments or the optional sentence here?
Which policy is that?
This is 430. So, sorry, let me just make sure I've got my spot here. Press +1. Okay. So we've got a list of authorized investments here, okay? And this is really just a restatement of the law, but the board has the option. I am so sorry, this document is not behaving. Okay, so the board has the option to add additional investments. So unless the board, is aware of additional things that they want to add to the list, I think you can ignore that and move on without adding anything at this time. And that could certainly be a thing where in the future, when you have more time to look, you could add more things or not. Maybe there's nothing that you need to add. Then here, this second sentence in the new paragraph is optional. So it says, when investing or depositing public funds, the district may give preference to financial institutions that have a current rating of outstanding under the CRA. So if that's something the board wants to do, to state in policy that they may give preference to those with an outstanding rating, then you could leave that sentence there. Or if the board's not comfortable with that and they don't want to give preference, then that sentence can be deleted.
What would your recommendation be, Linda? Leave it as it is or add it?
What is
We
that
don't
rating?
have anybody we don't have anybody within miles that would fall into a CRA, so it doesn't matter to us.
Okay.
And it does have a may there too, so it's not extremely crucial. Okay. All right, so next is policy 460, purchases and contracts. Again, extremely minor. It's just updating the legal reference. Okay, on 4150, facility management and building programs, we do have an update to the dollar amount here, and that was based on the school code changing, the $35,000 bidding threshold, and this spending limit being 1/2 of that. So it's updated to be 1/2 of the $35,000.
That makes sense.
All right, 4170, we kind of already touched on AEDs, updated legal requirement there. Here on 590, abused and neglected child reporting, this written report is, I can scroll down to the comment, was removed from the school code, so we've removed it from the policy in alignment with that.
Makes sense?
Yes.
All right, the ethics and gift ban here, we've got updates to refer to guidance counselors as school counselors, so that's really the change here. And then an additional item here about travel, lodging, food, and beverage costs for school counselors. And that is all in response to legislation changes. Okay, social media usage and conduct really just updated for continuous improvement to update Twitter to X, for example, add some new technology and platforms there. Those can be amended, further customized. We're just trying to keep them up to date, basically, with the ever-changing environment around us. Okay, maintaining student discipline. This one, comment 1 says that this policy's content is unique to the district, meaning that there may have been a change that we were not able to apply to this policy because it had been customized. So whenever that happens, we ask you to please consult the author of the policy and the press sample to look at those two things together, look at yours and the press sample to determine whether further changes are necessary. So here, 645.09R was a reference to an older material in your previous manual. So that was here. We changed it just to be more general and say administrative procedures because that 645.09R is no longer in existence.
So for reference, R used to be the code we use for district administrative procedures. I don't know where R came from, but it was unique to Unit 4, and anything with an R on the end of it used to be an admin procedure. Now it's AP.
AP, yeah. So I think you may have stepped out, but this policy's content is unique to the district, so it had a comment on it to consult the author of the policy and the press sample in order to determine if any further changes were needed, but we did update the legal references. Policy 660,
What number was it?
updated
Orlando.
every year, usually in the fall, based on legislative changes. So there's usually just a lot of updates in alignment with the updates to the school code. So this is one of them, including worker safety, just updating the text in alignment with the current version of the school code. This changed from needing to be done in grade 9, starting in grade 9 to grade 6. Then there's new text here about career exploration and college and career pathway. And then, again, all of the changes are in response to legislative changes. And then if you go down to the comments, it's going to give you a lot of information about potential opt-outs for these career exploration and career development activities, if that's something that the board would be interested in. If the board is fully opting out, it just gives a lot of information about what is needed to do those things. If the board's not interested in opting out, then that's irrelevant.
So Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but this sounds like it's really, now where our practice is ahead of our policy, because so we knew this law had come into effect, and so we started creating and spending time with the Portrait of a Graduate, our college and career readiness. Our just policy doesn't reflect our current practices. Am I missing anything here?
That makes sense.
So we yeah.
The fall 2026 instruction on climate change. We know about this particular. Or we've already implemented ahead of schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. Our policies are behind. That's just,
Yeah, exactly. We just want to get your policies up to date in the adopted policy
we're
manual.
behind.
All right, so that's 660. Next, we have accelerated placement. So that one was updated in alignment with changes to the school code as well. And then the sentence at press +3, so this last number here is optional.
So on accelerated placement, number 2, written notification of their child is eligible for enrollment in accelerated courses. Where does that,
That one's required.
it's required, and that is 612 or or pre-K 12? I mean, I don't know, K-12,
To
no, not
answer
accelerated,
that, I
pre-K.
could check the press footnotes to see
And
if
the-
that is answered there.
The only reason I ask is that our procedure is that parents have to advocate for accelerated placement in elementary. We are not looking at data and accelerating students on our own. So if we don't want that to be in there, or if we do, or if we have to, there are some implications there. That is on 60 of 78. And it should be 2A.
And I believe that that's in reference when you have those programs available. And so what Jonathan's talking about is grade level acceleration. as opposed to an accelerated course. And so the grade level acceleration comes through the application process that we have on our district intranet and happens every summer prior to the start of a school year. Where you have content level acceleration, there is also content level acceleration within there that would happen within the grade level course, or if there's a gifted or honors level option, then the students would be automatically placed rather than having to go through that process. That's much more common at the high school. And so when students are electing to take an AP version of English class or taking the grade level version of the English class, they're automatically placed in AP World History rather than World History as a sophomore. The parents would then work with the child to opt out of AP if they don't feel like that's the right course for them, or they're taking, what could happen is some kids are placed in 4 AP classes and maybe they don't need that many. And so they work, but they would opt out rather than being, having to opt in. There are a lot of school districts that place kids in honors level or AP level courses. We've always had a practice that anyone can take an AP or an honors level course. Not all districts have been like that, and so this law was designed to make sure kids had access based on those state test scores. So we not only keep it open, anyone can enroll in an AP or an honors level course, still in Unit 4, but the automatic placement is also in effect. And so I just say it's much more common, and we see it a lot more, like Jonathan said, at the high school than we do in elementary and middle school.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure that content grade level acceleration wouldn't be included in this policy.
Grade level acceleration is included in this policy.
It is?
Yes, so it's both a single subject grade level acceleration and early entrance to kindergarten or first grade, all 3 of those.
So
In the-
pre-K is there too then, or like this idea of early entrance into kindergarten. So I think I have some apprehension to the policy.
That's the law.
That's the law?
policy is required.
So the process is required. You have to have a
Yes.
process. It doesn't have to be. So the process is required. It doesn't have to be automatically done by the district without the parent initiating the process.
Right. Most often we see that at pre-K or early entrance kindergarten. We don't have any state assessments at that point, so it has to be initiated by the family. Those state assessments start in 3rd grade, and so that's where we're going to start seeing, the automatic placement for 4th grade starting to change. And that's been in place. We've sent those letters home for high school for the last couple of years. When there aren't other options, and I think there are 2 pieces, right, of this that you're talking about.
Correct. So I think when you just said state scores in 3rd grade,
Correct.
that would be my wonder for the district. Like my interpretation of this is that it requires action on us. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I heard you mention automatic enrollment, so that is covered in number 4 here in the following school term of a student in the next most rigorous level of advanced coursework. That part's already in your policy. There is a comment here, though.
Okay, so number 4.
This one's in high school.
Yes.
And then the comment here explains that the provision originally applied to a student who meets or exceeds, and it was amended to only apply to a student who exceeds. So we're recommending that you may want to consult with the board attorney to determine whether to keep meets or on that one. So sometimes we'll have additional information here about but yeah, we're talking about high school here. Yes. So that's an issue there to consider.
Who
And then-
usually, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
In our district, who makes the call, if a parent suggests that their 15-year-old should be in an AP class, who makes the determination in our district about whether they are a student of high ability who may benefit from accelerated placement? Who makes that call? Do we have instances where the staff doesn't think this person will succeed in that advanced class, but the parents suggest that they should, and then how does that work itself out?
Yeah, great question. We have open enrollment for all of our classes, as long as students have met the prerequisite for that class. And so we used to do teacher recommendations. There are still students and families are encouraged to talk with their current teachers to get recommendations, but there's by no means any weight or ability for a teacher to block a student from enrolling in any class as long as they've met the prerequisites. So we actually are encouraging our students to take the most rigorous course load that they're capable of. Again, this makes sure that there's automatic placement based on your test scores into the most rigorous option. Because many districts require you to not just meet a prerequisite, but also have staff approval or recommendation in order to get in. And we have not had that since I've been here the last 12 years. And so, and I think it goes even back before that. Jonathan, you were here before.
Yeah, I mean, the consent decree was the beginning of that, where families were able to advocate to put their student into honors, removing barriers and blockades to honors courses and opening those up. So that was part of the consent decree settlement as well.
But in our high school handbook, it outlines what the prerequisites are for certain AP classes. So that would be
So
like.
if we
you
adopt
would
this
need-
policy, we're already doing this.
We're already doing this. The Accelerated Placement Act has been around for several years. We have that process. Dan and I worked on that several years ago and implemented that. So.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had this in place.
Yep. And then this last one here, number 5, is optional. So it says waiver of a course completion requirement under graduation requirements policy if the district determines that a student has demonstrated mastery competency in the content of the course. So that is up to the board whether or not you want to include that.
So
This is an interesting one. Yeah, this is new.
That's a little bit more interesting. Mike, I'll let you talk on this one first.
Yep. Here's a really good example of that. Our freshmen are required to take biology. And AP, College Board, recommends that students have a year of biology before taking a AP biology course, which is a college level course. So for the most part, our AP biology students are mostly juniors and seniors in that class because of the requirement and the recommendation from College Board. It is not required by College Board for students to have a year of biology. So what could happen is with this, if we go in this direction, is that a family could apply or a student would apply to sort of waive that prerequisite that we currently have and take AP biology as a freshman. And we would need to put in some practices and procedures about what that application would be like. And we currently have a similar application process for grade level acceleration. In fact, that's pretty much what this would also be. You're accelerating beyond that core expectation of that life science biology grad requirement that we have. Currently, a student cannot graduate from Unit 4 without a full year of biology, without a semester of chemistry, and without a semester of physics. Those are our science graduation requirements that are aligned with state standards. So that's what would open. I know that this is what's coming from the state and the Acceleration Act, and so I think this is something we need to talk about and where we want to go. And right now, that is not possible. But
Mike, in addition to biology.
in Unit 4, I should say.
In addition to biology, English 1 would fit that.
English 1 would fit that, yes.
Any other courses?
Currently, human geography is different because we currently do not offer AP human geography, which is a graduation requirement in Unit 4. It is not a state required course, but it is a grad requirement for freshmen that does not have an honors option. We do not have an honors or accelerated option for freshmen, so in fact, they would be skipping to a course currently reserved for juniors and seniors. We have 2 AP classes and a dual credit class that we offer for juniors and seniors in English, but we do not have an AP option for freshmen or sophomores. We're offering all of the AP English classes that are offered from College Board. We are already working with Parkland on a 2-semester dual credit. We already have that. We've had it for several years. So we could explore other dual credit options. We could explore, it still needs to meet the English requirement of 4 years by the state. So we have to have, students have to be able to take 4 years worth of English in Unit 4. So I think that would be, if we're going to the AP level, we could look at whether or not we have honors level options for freshmen and sophomores. We used to have that for several years, and we detracked. I presented to the board last fall on the rationale behind that. I'm happy to talk more about it, but that would also be a piece there that would be more than one option for freshmen and sophomores in English. Social studies was the other one. That would only be for freshmen. For sophomores, we have an AP option and a grade level option. For juniors in social studies, we have AP World History, AP American History and American History. And seniors have Government and Civics and AP Government and Civics. So there's an AP option for 3 of the 4 years in social studies.
Sarah,
sorry.
I just wanted to hear from Sarah. Are you finding requests from families, students for accelerated courses, specifically in the areas of science, biology, English 1, some other elective, geography, right now as students are registering and through that process?
I don't get specific requests about accelerated classes in those content areas. Our counselors may. But, I mean, and there have been a few, just especially right when I got there, because it was fresh off of detracking biology and English. But the more, so what we get are concerns about the auto enrollment. I would say I talk more about that with families and teachers than I do the other.
I think one really good example, I'm sorry I didn't think of this first, we already do this in world language, for example. If a student is able to come in with a level of mastery in a specific world language, they're able to take a placement exam, and some students are ready to come in they maybe have not taken Spanish 1 or Spanish 2 yet with us, but they have that level of mastery with the language. They would be able to take an assessment and place into Spanish 3 or even an AP course. Now the question is, what else would we offer or pay for beyond our top level course? But that is another place.
Well,
we
and
already
math.
have automatic placements in math, where we have students. Our highest level course here in the district is Calc BC, which is an AP college level class for Calc 1, Calc 2. But we do have students who are accelerated who take Calc 3 either at Parkland or at the U of I. And so those would be some examples of students coming in who've gone through that content acceleration or taken a local assessment to place higher. Where we get some questions here recently are around biology. Why can't my student take AP biology as a freshman? And part of that is just using the guidance and the recommendations from our current teachers as well as College Board about the content knowledge they need to go in. We don't have a placement to place out of 9th grade biology at this time, or 9th grade, 10th grade English at this time.
What are the differences between AP governance and dual credit governance? Like, does College Board oversee both of those, or is it always going to be the local community college that's guiding dual credit? And if it is this going to conflict with anything that Parkland might come back and say to say,
Great
like,
question.
you can or cannot do this because it's not meeting our standard?
Yep. Dual credit is always our agreement with the local community college that's serving dual credit. We're working with the University of Illinois. They can offer dual credit as well, and they haven't for a long time. They're starting to explore what dual credit might look like at the U of I. But dual credit usually has a placement exam at the front end. So you need to take that placement exam in order to be eligible to receive dual credit. And then you need at least a C or better in that course in order for the dual credit to actually receive the dual credit. So there was a new law that was passed that any student can enroll in a dual credit course that's offered in the high school. But if you didn't pass the placement, you could get an A in the class. But if you didn't pass the initial placement, you will not receive dual credit. So it's the credit bearing weight of it is dependent on the placement in the beginning. In AP, anyone can enroll in an AP class, and you can have it whatever grade you want in an AP class. It's dependent on the exam that's given at the end of the year or at the end of the course in an AP class, and you need at least a 3 to receive college credit. And if you go to a state school, a state Illinois public university, you're guaranteed college credit. Now, it might not go to your major, but you're guaranteed college credit if you have a 3 or higher. And that's controlled by the College Board, not the community colleges.
Mike, I'm really impressed with your knowledge of the high school curriculum and all the offerings. That's awesome. What I heard, though, is that some of the barriers around this acceleration are our own prerequisites that we have perhaps created for some courses, right? And I also heard you say about some teacher input and you know, so I guess my question is, do you know of other districts that could model for us how they've tackled this, like our own prerequisites and our own graduation requirements, by the way, that we have established? So do you know of other districts like that have tackled this and like, you know, other offerings? Like it just opens up a wide array, I think, of questions.
The Accelerated Placement Act, which is what Sarah was talking about, lots of questions, is, okay, well, if I'm automatically placed based on my test scores, why all school districts across the state are receiving lots of questions about, well, why can't I place into an AP or others? And just because it's a very fair question. If I'm in an accelerated track, why do I have to take what the district's laid out? And I think across the board, this is something that is being discussed. It's relatively new. It sounds like this is an option, right? Because it's not part of the law yet. My opinion is, I think it's coming. I think it will be there'll be more guidance from the state about what we need to do, just like we have gotten that guidance and we've complied or been ahead of a lot of it for a long time. Right now, it's the most rigorous or accelerated option that is currently available. So if we do not have an honors biology class, and biology is the prerequisite that we have set, we get to set our graduation requirements. Our graduation requirements are currently higher and more rigorous than the state's graduation requirements. That is a local decision. Doesn't mean we have to keep it that way, but that's where we currently are. And so this is, I think, anticipating or reading in what is the language that how do we read that Acceleration Act, or how do we want that to operate within our within our courses. And so if we're going to include this, then we would want to implement that very soon, because in December, our families start registering for courses, right? And in January. So like, I don't know what the timeline is once we make this, if this goes into policy and how we get everything, or how we give ourselves but if right now we're asking whether or not to include it, this is not our current practice right now. And so I would say we would leave that out, and we need to give ourselves the time frame or a timeline in order to be able to implement it in time for kids to register. And so we're already having our conversations about the 26-27 course selection handbook that should be done in October. So I'm just giving you an idea of that process and that timeline that we currently follow.
I concur.
So what I'm hearing is that the recommendation for the board here would be to delete number 5 at this time. Is that right? So I just want to.
Leave it on or take it off?
To delete.
To delete it. Sorry.
this Optional number 5.
I think you also get into this GPA game again, right? Which we've
That's our other
created
issue.
policies and practices to mitigate that a little bit, and now we're kind of reopening the door if the board puts number 5 back in.
How so with the GPA?
I
know I know it's a weighted course.
a
and
weighted-
I think what's really critical here, because I see both sides. Part of it is we're behind, right? And it's September, and so you think about what the timeline is. You present a policy, it sits to the next board meeting before it becomes adopted. There's some discussion. There are a lot of models to your question, Suzanne, about how that placement is made. Teacher recommendations are always a matter of debate, right? There's placement tests that some districts use. Sometimes the administration of the 9th grade state assessment, whether it be it's going to be the ACT now, so there isn't we don't give an 8th grade version, but we could give an 8th grade version to our kids, because that, is a test of college readiness. There's absolutely work to be done if this is going to happen. That alone shouldn't be a reason for us not to do something. Right. I mean, if we believe that there's merit in allowing kids to be placed in a course that meets their academic abilities, then I think at some point we should consider it. And I think it probably requires some more discussion. Because I am not ready to make a recommendation one way or the other. But I can tell you that I've gotten numerous questions about this item,
About number 5?
about number 5.
A class that's required for graduation? Okay.
If you were to go back to the English example, right, there are no longer honor level English classes at the freshman and sophomore level. Kiddo comes in exceeding standards, let's say on a state test, in freshman year. Is our placement then to sophomore English? Our placement is into AP language?
No, I mean, we don't have a process for that right now.
No, but so like if you took number 5 and implemented number 5, and you had a kid on IAR 8th grade come in with an exceeding, right?
Right, well, that's something we could consider. Like,
That would
instead of
something-
English 1, we could say you're going to be in English 2 now.
Correct. That
I
would be
think
an
that's-
option. That's why we'd need time to build that out. We would need new courses or new pathways. Even if you start in English 2, we would need because it's a 4-year grad requirement by the state, not just by us, we would need a new senior level course, or we'd need another option. And it could be, we look back at, an honors level option at the sophomore year. There's things that we could look at bringing back. We didn't make the decision to detrack lightly. There are lots of reasons, and it would take a lot more time to talk about. But again, I did give that presentation to the board in November last fall. And I believe we have some strong data to suggest that that's having a positive impact overall on our district and addressing achievement and opportunity gaps that we've had. And that's part of our work.
Not having the curriculum guide memorized, but I recall numerous English electives that one could take that would fulfill a year's worth of English credits. And so, we get kind of in this mindset that you take, English 1, English 2, English 3, or honors English, or whatever the track may be, and then eventually AP and dual credit. Some districts offer speech, communication, for example. Those are English credits that could count towards graduation.
Correct.
As opposed to just 1, 2, 3, and then electives as a senior class. So it's not new, it's different than what our practice is here. And I guess what I'm suggesting, journaling, absolutely.
Journalism,
There's a
yes.
long list, right? There's lists. Diverse voices.
Yes.
We have one that's called, that I know my mentee's taking right now at Central High School as an English elective that's going to count as one of his graduation requirements. And so there are other options for kids. And before we make a recommendation to do this or not, this is one of those things that, as we think about school and how we're doing it and how it meets the needs of the kids, I think we need to give strong consideration as to what our students are asking and what they need, right? I mean, we've been doing it most traditionally for decades, right? It's a very straight pattern, and it works for some, but for there's some we know it doesn't work, right? And so, just my thoughts on number 5.
I think listening to what you just said, Dan, one obstacle we might face, the type of student that is passing an assessment or placement into these courses, as taking English as an example. As you move up in English, let's say they take AP Language, AP Lit, or dual credit, or what have you, and then their senior year, they're open to a class. If those classes are not honors or accelerated, you might run into a predicament where now at their senior year, they're not getting an honors level accelerated GPA boost, and that's going to have some sort of a response or issue as well.
Yep.
Because these kids technically are your accelerated honors kids who are looking for that GPA. Now, offering courses is one thing, right? Honoring the acceleration and completing things sooner. But I think if you lock them out of taking additional honors classes is where you might get some pushback.
Yeah, I think it, certainly for a student that maybe wants to go into English, journalism in college, we may have some challenges. Any district, any high school is always going to be limited by the courses that they can offer, right? It would be great to have an unlimited umbrella of courses. We're unique here in that the University of Illinois and Parkland are literally, right, our neighbors. And so with, I think, strong partnerships, we can expand dual credit. We can consider dual enrollment options. For those that maybe, to your point about there's a GPA race, there's a race to make sure that I have the highest possible GPA, and if I don't take enough honors classes, then my weight is going to be less than maybe my counter. Sure. Someone may always have that perspective. I think the perspective back to the laws that were passed about CCR, college and career readiness, really needs to shape how we're having that conversation with our students. When we academically give advice, when we do that advisement, really we should be looking at what their goals are. And it shouldn't necessarily be to take as many honors as you want, right? It should be able to explore these various areas that suit maybe their needs, right? So that they can start taking courses that are going to lead towards a track that they, want to pursue post-high school. And part of this GPA competition is part of a broken system, in my opinion, right? It's really getting people stuck in this mindset instead of saying, really, this is what your goals are, and these are the options for you, and let's encourage you. Take that art class, because it's going to develop, you in the long run. And I don't want to get stuck on this one too long. I'm not ready to throw it out, and I'm not maybe ready to recommend it as we're kind of talking about this as a committee. And so if there's any other thoughts on it, maybe we table it for further discussion. All right, let's move on.
All right, thank you.
And just so everyone, this isn't the first time we've kind of had, these are the discussions we need to have regarding our policies, right? There's been times where, we have an issue, a press issue, and we agree with everything except for that one thing. And so that one thing isn't going to keep us out of compliant with policy, right? So we're going to move forward, and then as we feel appropriate, then we're maybe going to bring that. And it may be at a time where we're not bringing a whole other issue, but we're saying, we've spent some time, we've vetted this, and, we feel strongly about this recommendation now. And then we might just bring a single policy to the board for them to consider.
Because Dan, I think that's a really good point. If you adopt it into policy, if you bring it forward for adoption, implementation has to happen immediately, correct? You can't say, we're adopting it, implementation will be the 27-28 school year.
Why can't you write that to policy?
I don't know that you can.
Effective February of
Can you?
2027.
That does happen in some instances. You'll find in issue 120, for example, there's some things in the curriculum policy that says starting with the 2026-27 school year, but we want to get it in there now so that districts have time
Because we had the conversation now.
to begin. Yeah, absolutely. So that is certainly an option. Another option for this policy would be to maybe adopt, the required piece, not adopt the optional piece, and like Dan said, come back to it when the board's ready to have a deeper conversation and decide, rather than, holding up the required piece for the optional piece type of thing.
Does that sound good with everyone else? All right, let's do that, and then we'll continue that conversation.
All right, so next we have the Guidance and Counseling Program, Policy 6270. Just some school code requirements, bringing that into the updated language. So really, I don't think there's anything that needs to be discussed there unless anyone has any questions. Okay. Next, similar, just updating the language to not include meningococcal disease and vaccinations here, and that is in response to a legislation change.
Angie, I think I just lost you
Okay.
in your page numbers.
Okay.
Student, did we do 7160? Student appearance?
Nope, 7160 is next.
That-
Were they out of order? You're right. Oh, no, 7100. I did 7100, and now I'm going to 7160.
Which one was 7? I don't see 7100. We went guidance and counseling program straight to
Oh, okay.
student appearance.
I have
Unless it's after this.
7100. So my PDF is actually different than yours, but it may be, the policies might be out of order.
What was the 7100? It was just
It's,
pneumococcal.
It was a legislative update.
Yeah. So the policy is health, eye, and dental examinations, immunizations, and exclusion of students, just, legal requirements,
Yep.
really. And so there was just a language change based on a legislation change here to strike meningococcal disease and vaccinations.
Oh, got it.
So 710, we're not doing it anymore.
710 was part of the Title IX grouping, so I had pulled that one out. All right, so next is 7160. And here we had an update to align the policy with 7165. It's not really a change. It's more of a wording change for clarification and to make this more clear. So there's a change that affected both policy 7160 and 7165. And actually, does your manual have 7165? That's a uniform policy. You deleted that, okay. So yeah, I think when we started the project years ago, you did have that one. But the wording was a little bit different and we just aligned them better. So
We were the
this
holdout.
isn't really a change other than the wording.
Yeah, we got rid of our dress code policy, which is essentially this is some time ago.
Yep.
Okay. So next is connection with the community. And we've got some continuous improvement language updates. We do have some updates in response to a Supreme Court case here, and that one is about district social media accounts. And up here, we have a comment that the board and superintendent should have a discussion about these items here where it says the board in collaboration with the superintendent or designee shall plan and implement a district public relations program that will do these 7 listed things. So the comment there is that the board and superintendent should have a conversation regarding which objectives the board, superintendent, or both together will implement. So that's just a different district level conversation. And then we've got just some best practice updates in alignment with the foundational principles of effective governance. A link to some training resources and more statements based on the foundational principles of effective governance. So this is really, excuse me, about the community engagement piece. We reworked that piece in order to align with the foundational principles of effective governance.
Angie, can you help me understand?
Yeah.
Can you help me understand the origins of a policy like 810? Does IASB just come up with this out of whole cloth 20 years ago and then changes over time? Or did we write this? Where does this come from?
That's a great question. So I'm going to consult the press footnote here, which will say, yes, this is a particular policy that is not required by law and is written as a best practice recommendation in alignment with the foundational principles of effective governance to help guide the district's public relations and community engagement work.
So it drafted beginning to end by IASB?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So this one has some different options that we covered when we originally did the program. Sometimes we do pull in, of course, things from Supreme Court cases, for example, as, research for the policy, aligning the policy with these types of things. But no, this policy is one that is more of a goals policy for the board and not anything that's legally required. So that was a great question. And it's just continuous improvement, mainly updates here. And that's it for issue 117. So we've gotten through the October 2024 Press Plus update, and we do still have quite a bit of time. So should we go ahead and move on to issue 118?
Let's do it.
Yeah. If you guys need a break at any point, just
Now,
take it as needed.
now, for some reason, when I downloaded this PDF, it put policy 7200 on top, so this one is not in chronological order. But this is moving on to the April 2025 Press Plus update, and we have some updates in response to the Ensuring Success in School, or the ESS law, here in the suspension procedures policy. So these are directly related to law. I don't believe we have any options or anything like that to discuss on that one. So does anyone have any questions?
We have to do these.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so now moving backwards to section 4, operational services. updates under treatment of personally identifiable information under grant awards. And these are also law changes. It's got some consult the board attorney for guidance if needed, and some references to administrative procedures that also help with implementing the directives in this policy. But as far as the board policy part, it's just some wording changes from changes in the law. All right, on personnel expenses, we simply have a legal reference number change, and that is it. Okay, now on home and hospital instruction, we did have some substantial changes there regarding pregnancy, and that is from the Ensuring Success in Schools law, the ESS law. And again, no options or anything like that. It's all from that law.
Can we hold on that for 1 second, because I'm not finding this.
Okay.
Thanks.
40 of 109.
Thank you. I just want to double check the home hospital, please. I think it's just the pregnancy change.
Yep. It added pregnancy-related conditions, the fulfillment of parenting obligations related to the health of the child, or health and safety concerns arising from domestic or sexual violence.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Next up is 6235, access to electronic networks. So we added a section here, and this one is not required. This whole section is optional. We added this off, we basically are offering this policy language to districts as a way to address the use of artificial intelligence and AI-enabled tools. This language is not required to be adopted into policy. A lot of districts have been looking for and wanting to develop language in policy about AI, so it's just developed as an option for you.
Where do we stand with, wasn't IT looking at adopting an official AI program for district use?
Yeah, I believe that contract went to the board earlier this fall for staff-only use. It's called Magic School. There is not access for students through the district network. It's for staff only at this time. And that's very recent. I believe it was just this summer or this fall, right?
And this addition here is reflective for staff and, or student, right? This isn't just student specific.
Yeah, this policy is in section 6, and so it actually covers the entire district, so that would be staff and students.
Currently, we have nothing.
I would put something.
So the question is, do we like this as written, as a starting point? Do we feel like we need to wait on it? Or do you want to go custom? Those are essentially our three options.
It's fairly general. I mean,
Do we want to have our, want our IT department to look at it? I'm not trying to delay. Dan, I just know in other times when specific policies were specific to certain individuals, you had us look at them, or like the nurse might look at them if it's nursing. And I feel like Ben Kelly in the IT department was working on something. I just can't speak to it, and so maybe we just
Yeah,
have. them
no,
look at it.
absolutely. We can just make a note. We can, the nice thing is we're coming back again on Tuesday, so
Right.
we can.
We can take
we
another
have
look
some
at it,
feedback by
yeah.
then.
I think the only, the only
Mine neither.
piece, which I'm sure would be embedded in the adoption of it or the use of it, would be number 4, is ensuring that there's training. It seems to be the only implication.
Well, I would say it also requires us to have an AI plan and an AI responsible use guidelines. And again, those, I know those have been, or at least are in draft form. There have been guidelines shared. I think an AI plan is interesting. I'm wondering what else would need to be in a plan versus guidelines as far as, maybe that's, I would want to look more into that, but I love the idea of sharing it with Rhonda for feedback. But I do agree with this and the fact that we would need a plan and guidelines and PD.
Yeah, I'll share it with the IT department, and then we can follow up on Tuesday.
There's some links in the Press Plus comments there that they might be interested in as well, so.
It also might give them direction on what they need to create too, instead of just spinning in a circle.
Yeah, I was about to say, you can always, again, include that and put implement by a
Right.
certain time, and now you have
Exactly.
a window to get it done by.
All right, this policy had some optional language from the press footnotes that the board had chosen to adopt, and therefore this addition was added as well, which is optional. And so it says, however, if the board adopts such a policy, it must allow the consideration of any mitigating factors, including the student's status as a parent, expectant parent, or victim of any domestic or sexual violence. This is, again, in alignment with that ESS law. A lot of the changes in this issue are related to that. And so this is regarding student transfers to and from non-district schools if they have been suspended or expelled from a previous school and wanting to transfer into the district. So this additional sentence, actually, all of this is optional, but the board had previously adopted this first piece of the sentence.
Yeah, my recommendation on this policy specifically, I know we have a number of other administrators that are working on this specifically. We get lots of questions at the start of the year about transfer, and so we're looking at that. Would be just to hold off on adopting this, particular since it's optional, and incorporate some of their recommendations, allow them to review that, unless other people have some thoughts specific to this.
Well, Dan, isn't this only for transfers from non-district students? It's not for our own students, is it? This is for students wanting to transfer into our district, correct?
Yes.
And we would, we want them to be in good standing. Why would we go against the student in good standing form? I think that's what that's saying, right?
The
We would let
ISBE
them in
form,
if
right?
they've been expelled from another district? That's,
You could be suspended at the time of entry, according to if I remember right, according to the ISBE form, but expulsion would be placed at a safe school.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that's what our practice is. Yes, suspension's okay.
Yes, I
Placing
just-
in an
I don't like-
Expulsions,
school. So
so I don't like that part, yeah, the expelled part, that we would,
it's allowing the superintendent to place them in an alternative school program.
oh,
They wouldn't be entering the school. So that's,
so we would take students from other districts into our alternative programs, which we don't have space for our own, so.
Sarah, do you do much with do you have conversations much with Orlando about this?
Yeah, we get a lot of transfers. If they're not if their paperwork doesn't come as in good standing, then we do some digging with the homeschool. Usually it's due to something like this with an expulsion, but we've had success in placing them at Ready.
So that is our practice.
Yeah, that's what we've done in the past. If they're a special education student, that might be a little bit different. I don't know if, because I know the Circle Pavilion, if that would be like a more of a restrictive environment that they would need, but we haven't, to my knowledge, had that experience with a student that needs that setting.
Yeah, I think like the other policy, I'd like Orlando and his team, because they deal with this regularly. I don't see too many of these.
Does Ready take middle school students? Because this also impacts the middle schools.
Yes.
And I don't know, it may not just be high school or elementary. I mean, we don't have many expel elementary students, but it happens in other districts.
I think that would be like a restore student maybe at the
Yeah.
elementary level, but Ready does take they have a middle school program. Yes.
Ready right now?
Their number and availability of seats has varied over the year. Last year, it was really limited. I don't know what they are this year.
It depends on like us, right? With their FTE and their teachers and teacher shortage, and if they have teachers that have the classrooms.
And I'm not sure if I missed it, but like if you accept a student to the district and then the third party says we don't have space, then what are you doing with the student?
Well, the past practice has been to put them on homebound.
Right.
Not that that's the best option, obviously, but that's what we have done.
Because ultimately the placement at the safe school is dependent on them accepting the placement.
Yeah, the policy is just saying that the superintendent is authorized to allow it, not that the student will 100% of the time be placed.
Understood, but when it's in our policy that the superintendent does have an option to allow it, it will open up the door for that pressure to consider it.
Yeah, and is this an option where we can do or designee? Because our practice, right? I mean, if we're fixing things to match our practice, I'm not seeing these, coming across and maybe we haven't had any this year yet. I don't know.
I don't know that Orlando's had any this year.
Right, it's early, right? You might just be getting new enrollees. Like, you probably start seeing these later in the year more. That's why I want to talk to Orlando a little bit about.
It does kind of beg the question too, what do we do with students who are coming from schools in incarceration, like the DOJJ school, or if they're coming from JDC, their school, because that's been kind of challenging to navigate too, because they are schools, they do get credits from those schools to transfer over, and it's a very unique transfer at that point, right?
Well, and students that transfer in from alternative placements as well.
Therapeutic back.
Yeah. Okay, let's let me get some more input from our team that really works with the transfer piece a little bit more, and maybe by Tuesday I can have an update.
Great. All right, again, we have another spot in the next policy, 760, where we're adding language from that ESS law. So anywhere that it was applicable, that's been inserted. And here, that is not part of an optional piece. Actually, let me double check on that. Non-resident students, yeah. This is admission of non-resident students according to an intergovernmental agreement.
When do we do, I know we had questions from districts in the past about enrolling because MLL services, but is that a practice that we even are using right now? Do we know of any where we're admitting kids in non-resident?
I've got one I'm waiting with Linda right now. I mean, I clearly understand in our practices around homeless and foster children. This to me, that because a student is pregnant, they can come into our district is, like, that's just concerning. Maybe I'm reading it incorrectly, because, and I certainly think violence, right, is inter-district would mean between districts. No, that would be intra. This
Intra is
inter.
Centennial Central.
This is Champaign to Urbana, folks.
Yes.
So I just wanted to double check
think.
on what I said about it being required. It is optional. It's just that your board had previously, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
I want you to
please, I can
continue.
help.
But I just wanted to make sure that we're aware. The board had previously adopted this part that says according to an intergovernmental agreement, which was optional. Okay, it says
probably the
in number
special ed
3,
kids.
it says entering into such an agreement is optional. But because that was there, you got the update that's related to ESS law.
I think part of the other intergovernmental agreement piece had to do with literally between governmental entities where something was going on and we needed to bring students in. I mean, to Suzanne's point, we don't do it regularly. We just had one last year, that person's not come back. And it was a Muhammad student who needed legal services because they didn't have a multilingual teacher that was available to them. Suzanne's now dealing with one in the special ed space. And
Well-
if we don't have space, then it begs the question.
Well,
Right.
and Orlando and I reviewed one last year, a parent request of Muhammad High School, and it was bullying. And could that be considered violence?
That's a good question.
And that was a high school student where we would have capacity.
We did have a couple from Urbana last year because of bullying and violence and all that.
And by community and-
Like, yeah, we just don't think we can do this.
But it has to be domestic or sexual violence.
The language here says domestic.
So this doesn't apply to the special education MLL programming pieces. This is specific to,
Unless you have a student who's pregnant.
correct,
Or getting bullied by a friend.
or getting bullied by a family member.
Literally. Or sexually abused. I mean, and in that case, one of the Urbana cases last year was an instance of sexual abuse in the family. And the parents wanted the student, but with that came a host of things, and Orlando had to kind of piece his way through that because it wasn't just a straight up, we're gonna provide shelter. It was, you got other issues that are connected with that. Is that what you want? Right, and can we accommodate it? Can we keep that student safe?
And who pays for the services?
We do.
Once they're here, they're our service, right?
Right.
It's not like Muhammad is paying for that student to come here.
Muhammad paid for the multilingual student because we treated it as a tuition.
Correct.
And then Suzanne, if we had a straight up sped situation, we gotta work through what the cost would be that we're gonna charge the other district, but in that case, it would be a tuition.
Right.
But this is just
This is different.
pay ours.
Are there hidden costs with that, such as like transportation, say if they don't move?
Oh, yeah, because they wouldn't have to move. We'd have to bring them from wherever.
Which-
So that's part of that was the part of the conversation last year, the family wasn't switching locations. So then.
Think about your
Busing and.
MTSS
And I think we
costs.
all know the challenges of just, I mean, those factors with our homeless population, right, and our foster students, because we've gone across, you know, I know of, we've ran a special ed bus route, you know, to, where was it when we were going? Ivesdale every day, right, for homeless. So I think it's just worth having Orlando review and.
All right.
And I mean, those students are going to come with significant needs usually too. So then it's going to put a strain on psychologists, social workers.
Do we have any local schools doing this? I would be shocked.
You mean in their policies?
Why would they? I don't know. Why did we?
Do you see a lot of adoption of that policy? Of that update to that policy?
I don't have any data on that right
Okay.
now. So if you have this piece at all, you'll have to add the part about the ESS law. So it's kind of an,
You have to do it.
No.
They go together.
yeah, so it's going to update it in accordance with the ESS law. And that's why you got that update, because you had this piece to begin with.
So the question really is, do we want to keep the language on the intergovernmental agreement? Because if we do, then we have to adopt the language.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so now on to attendance and truancy, and we have more updates here on page 1 in accordance with the ESS law. So all of these are that same law regarding attendance and truancy. And then we have a different piece of the law that was updated here to change this from teachers and administrators to all school personnel here. And then this is just a continuous improvement update unrelated to law down here to change monitoring to updating for this policy, which just is for clarity purposes. Any questions on any of that?
No.
All right, next we have teen dating violence prohibited. And, gosh, okay, I did not see a change. What's going on? Oh, because it's rewritten, that's why. So this is another one that your policy was unique. So if you go in and look. Yeah, 7185. So the one in your policy manual is unique and contains those references to policy 114, the non-discrimination statement. And so this one
Yeah.
in the packet now is aligned with the press sample to, again, make your updating more user-friendly. But you have obviously the option to stay, log me out because I went into press. Hang on 1 second. You have the option to stay with your customized one. And again, if we deleted 114, we would take care of those references. The previous version in your packet simply had the comment that said your policy's content is unique, consult the author and the press sample to determine changes. So we weren't able to provide any updates to that one because of the unique nature of it. So now I've provided the option to go to the press sample with this rewritten version.
So were there any substantive changes to what we originally had versus what this one is?
So between your unique one and the press sample, or?
Yeah, I mean, is it, would you just go to the press?
I'm going.
So they both have a student 13 to 19 years old, but the wording, as you can see, is very different. So some of it's because of the references to 114 that were there for your unique suite of policies. But when these policies are rewritten, you can go into, Sherry and Dan, you can go into edit mode and do this comparison to see more specifically what the changes are.
Yeah, I'm just looking at what our online policy manual, our online it's, I'm seeing multiple references to policy 114 is a big,
Yeah.
is a change,
So
which was
really
a
it's-
customization.
It's again about how that whole suite.
How the whole suite
works
kind of came together
Yeah.
than I am of anything of substance
So
right
if-
here.
If you moved toward deleting that and moving toward the press samples on the other ones, I think it would make sense to move toward
Yeah,
press on this one as well. So that's why I went ahead and
it's part of the suite.
placed that in here.
I get it's part of the suite, I just wonder how, and Sarah, I'd love your take, that it says that, you know, the kid has to report to the principal or the social worker. I mean, I know we're not going to exclude any kid's concern if they don't report to the principal or social worker, but is that okay?
Say it one more time.
It just says in this instance of teen dating violence, Sarah, that a student would report to the principal or the school social worker. Is that okay that that's specific
kid.
or?
Not the kid, district employee who becomes aware of the
Oh,
incident.
thank you.
So it's only if
Thank
the
you.
district employee becomes aware that they must then report it to the principal or social
Thank you.
worker. So that probably alleviates it a little.
So
Sorry, I'm so sorry, Suzanne.
since you got that comment that said district unique, we were unable to apply the changes. Here is the actual change from the issue. Had your policy manual had the press sample, this is the change, and it's directly related to the Title IX language change that's been reversed. So the 2024 included sex-based harassment, and now it's been reverted to sexual harassment. So that was what the change actually was. And again, adopting the press samples means that everything will be up to date and in alignment with the current Title IX regulations. So that one was kind of tangentially related to Title IX, so it wasn't in that initial Title IX packet we looked at the beginning, but it's related, so. And this is the last, is this the last one in? Nope, never mind. It's not the last one in this packet, okay, so.
We're
sorry,
getting
I don't
close.
know- I don't know where I got
We're going to
that.
get
Why
through
did I-
118 here.
I think that. So, okay, next is 7190, student behavior. So here, we have some changes regarding sexting language. This is to tie some things up that were referring to a sexting definition. I believe later, maybe even in the Administrative Procedures Manual, referring back to this policy, and this is to make that definition more clear. So let me scroll down to the comment on that. Definition, it just gives some information about where we got this definition of sexting. So that is not a legal requirement to have that particular definition of sexting, but again, we're trying to help districts out by having that sample language. And then the rest of the changes are related to changes in the law, which had to do with corporal punishment, which is now clarified to be prohibited in all circumstances, and gives some additional information about it. I mean, it was already prohibited. It's just kind of some stronger language based on the change of how the law is worded.
Does this policy have anywhere in it that this is during the instructional day?
Yes, at the
Or is it
beginning
implied?
of the policy, let's see here.
No, it says
It says the school administration is authorized to discipline students for gross disobedience or misconduct, including but
That's
not limited
that.
to.
First list, and then grounds for disciplinary action.
Well, I'm not sure we want it to be limited to just the school day.
Yeah, but then if you don't,
So
and
this
you
is
have
talking
sexting in here,
about-
that's gonna open up a whole can of worms.
I mean, do we still have our clause with the whole nexus thing with school
Right?
related to, or,
That's my wonder too, Sarah.
yeah?
Like, where does that come into this policy?
Because it may not be during the
Read number
school-
18.
But that's its own bullet.
Well,
So,
all of them are
activity,
it seems like you could.
I'm looking at this, and the press sample does talk about it being on school grounds, so looking to see if maybe this one is customized. Yeah, it looks like your board has customized this one as well, outside of the press sample, because this is the press sample, and it starts out with an introductory paragraph, and then when and where conduct rules apply.
It does look different.
Yeah. So that one has been customized as well, and we can always look into going back to some more of this press alignment
The honor
there.
with, the number one, honor within sight of, that looks like some layperson wrote that. Is that?
No, it's in this one too.
That's in,
That's press.
This is press.
so what happens if I live across the street from the school, I'm on my private property, and I sneak my dad's cigarettes? The school's gonna punish me for that because of where my house is? Because I'm within sight of the school?
No, because it doesn't relate to, I think that box is open over the caveat that Sarah was looking for.
Here, let me-
Whenever the student's conduct is reasonably related to school or school activities, including but not limited to, in that case, you could say, yeah, you live across the street, you're smoking cigarettes, but it's not school-based, right? It's not a school activity. You can see the school, but it's not a school activity that we would take any, action on.
It's not having an effect on your school day or somebody else's school day. There's not a relationship. Unless, somebody started bullying you for it
Right.
because they saw you. I mean, right?
Right, so
And then-
in the footnotes there, we do have ultimately a decision whether to discipline for off-campus misconduct requires a thorough factual inquiry. This would definitely involve the board attorney, that type of thing. So we've got more information there about that language.
The thing is, as long as your nexus piece is in there, then it's fine. And then I wonder if you need to make it a custom or just use what they have so that it's not a custom. We need to get away from customs. Yes, we got to get away from some of these customs.
Yeah, I can't recall why we decided to, and we had lots of
Yeah.
this process started in 2019, so
Yeah.
memory's not,
Started in
Yeah, did this go
2019.
to the attorney? Is that who?
it could have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It was
some of them.
Orlando
were
might have worked with our
completely
attorney.
absorbed.
with Jennifer on it.
Jennifer.
Angie, it would be helpful for me to know, like, if it's to be flagged or to have a list, what's custom, what's already press, just so that I know, or if we're coming back on Tuesday, it'd just be helpful
Okay.
as a reference sheet to know, or have them flagged or color-coded or whatever we had. Or Sherry, maybe you would note that, I don't know, but. it would
Yeah,
be-
outside of
I didn't
the-
know this was, it's
outside
just,
of the-
it's hard to know. We didn't all know, I think, until just this question came up.
Every policy has the potential to be customized in
Yes.
some form. If it has a 2 for an even number, if it has the number of, yep, then you know for sure it's customized.
2, 4, 6, or 8 is customized, but not a 0.
right?
Right, but this didn't, this is a
Zeros?
0.
4, 6, or 8.
Generally, the press samples.
So this is a 0, and that's why I was confused.
Yeah,
This is tweaked, not.
so that means
tweaked.
this one's,
Yeah, that's a good, that's a,
this one's been
this
massaged.
one's tweaked. And so there's some tweaking, right? I mean, that was the whole process, right? You kind of,
That's what I was
some
saying.
tweaks as
Yeah,
needed.
even if we've made an adjustment or we didn't, whatever, it'd be nice to have a catalog of this is adopted as written, it is adopted with the option or no option, that would be a nice reference.
and it looks like this has reference to 114,
Oh, which doesn't exist
And that
anymore.
probably
Our existing-
Explains why it was
why it was
probably
customized. Yes.
part of that
So I'm looking at our existing policy. It has
Yep, it's got
multiple
this-
references to,
paragraph
Is it-
here.
Would it be helpful, I know we're going back to some departments for next week. Would it be helpful to maybe kick this back to Orlando and say, hey, can you refresh us on why we went to
Yeah.
Jennifer on this and what she might have said?
yeah, this was probably part of our customized Title IX.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it's.
I'm guessing.
Now that I
And if that's now eliminated and we're okay with it,
think we can probably go back to press. So
Yep.
I will get back with Orlando on this one as to 7190 Sherry.
The next one's gonna be suspension.
Suspension was the one that was at the top of the packet for some reason. So we did suspension, but then I think next we'll have expulsion. So we talked about the corporal punishment, and then a little bit of a change here under required notices. So anytime we were able to put the change in, because your language did match the press sample, we did. And then, so, yeah, a few more changes there, and those were all updates for the law. I was still on 7190. Yeah, yeah. So, I can take a look, if you'd like me to, at the extent of the customization. It may be, mostly limited to the introduction pieces being left out, but I do also see like the disciplinary measures list here is a little bit different. Notifying parents, guardians here is number 1 on the press sample, whereas yours, it starts out with disciplinary conference. Notifying parents, guardians is down lower. So I can kind of dive a little deeper on the differences.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Before Tuesday.
Yeah. Thank you.
I got a question just about how we implement these policies. A lot of this stuff, it seems like in this one, allows the district to exercise discipline over a student who misbehaves outside of the school, the traditional school sphere, on the way to school. So if they live up on, West Bradley Avenue, and they're going to Cary Busey, and they gotta drive 5 miles or whatever, the student misbehaves, it's a bad example. You get what I'm saying? If you're miles from the school and you misbehave on the way there, you violate one of these policies. Has this stuff been tested in the courts? Are there examples of school districts imposing discipline on students who violate the rules of conduct but do so far away from a school? Like not within sight, but on
Definitely
the
on a
way to
bus.
school, miles away
I
from
don't think you
Central
mean
High
on a
School?
bus, right? You mean.
I don't mean on a bus.
Yes.
I mean-
Yeah, yeah.
I mean a 17-year-old junior driving to Central High School from 2 miles away commits a DUI or possesses cannabis or cigarettes. And maybe the principal is driving to work at the same time and looks over in traffic and says, that's my student, and he's smoking a cigarette in violation of this. He's only 17 or whatever, but we're 3 miles from where we're going.
it wouldn't apply, yeah.
There's no nexus on the school.
It's more going to relate to.
It's,
You and I got in an argument, and on the way home, you and your buddies are going to jump me,
Yep.
as we're walking down.
You get this, and more so like take social media things, right? You're posting on things in social media at home, away from school, or in another state. You come to school based on what you did on social media. There are issues that arise. We would take action on that. you smoke weed and, you smoke cannabis on the way to school, you arrive to school and you are high, then we'll take action on that. But like a cigarette, things like that, we wouldn't do anything.
And I haven't read the entire policy, but
So-
I'm just looking at that part that was with the
Where-
numbers.
Where number 4 says anywhere.
Yeah,
So-
the grounds for disciplinary action, including those described more thoroughly later in this policy, apply whenever the student's conduct is reasonably related to school activity. So you're saying like smoking a cigarette in the car, nothing to do with school. Correct. Not gonna. Correct.
We're just gonna wait.
So, yeah.
Thumbs up, have a great day.
Right.
School.
And we've had that before, right? You would have, you
Attendance matters.
you could wind up with community members calling the school saying, well, I saw your kids smoking on the corner of, University and where the University liquor store is, right? And they want to call the school and say, you need to do something about that. We would say, that is not on school property. That has no nexus to what we are doing.
Yep.
That's a community piece.
Okay, very
and
good.
you got to handle that there.
Okay,
So
very good.
basically, the bottom line on that is every single instance of that is going to be fact-specific and individual, and it's going to involve a fact-specific analysis
Certainly, but
each time. So here, where we've got the where and when and where the conduct rules apply, number 4, it's anywhere. But then in the footnote, the factual context will determine the appropriateness of taking jurisdiction. Contact the board attorney before disciplining student for off-campus conduct, absolutely every time. And so really, like I said, it's a very case-by-case type.
yeah, and it makes sense. I
situation.
asked a
And this piece
question.
right here where it says anywhere is not included in your currently adopted, that's part of the piece that's missing from your currently adopted policy.
Got
So
it.
that's not there. We start right out with the prohibited conduct and it does not say where.
So I am wondering if we use 0 to represent relatively close press policies, but the 114 reference was really what triggered it as custom.
Well, so since this one is customizing, but largely based on press, and it's a topic that was already covered by press, your customization went into 7190, and it was somewhat just deleting press sample, so it didn't need to be recoded. But 114 is in addition, and 2262 is in addition to press samples, if that kind of helps.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out why some of these
Yeah.
0.
Because that does match the press coding of that policy, 7190 student behavior. And so yours is even renamed a little bit, student behavior prohibited student conduct, whereas the press sample is just student behavior. But since it covers the same topic, it went into the same coding. But yeah, there's no individual flag for every piece of customization within individual policies. Other than when we go through and do your Press Plus customization for your customized Press Plus update issues, you'll get those little comments that says, this is unique to the district. You must consult the author here. Consult the press sample to see what we've got, talk to the author of this policy, and let us know what you.
Now, I will tell you that Sherry keeps an archive of some of the notes related to as we track the changes, but it's not in the level of detail, right? It's kind of the high points on this. But I think this is a good spot to stop.
I was just going to say, it's 3:30.
We are at
We made a
3:30.
lot of
Thanks
good
for hanging in
progress.
there, right? We got a little lull there. We powered through and we got almost done with 118. I spoke ahead.
Yeah, and 119 is much shorter. This one's only 16 pages, and then this last one over here don't have any changes. These are review and monitoring only, which I'll talk more about next time, and then I want to talk about moving forward toward issue 120 next week as well.
Wonderful.
Angie, I do,
So I got to, just as a matter of order, we're going to move to item number 5, public comment. As I see, there's no more, we don't have anyone in the, for public comment. We're number 6. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Tony and Walker, all those in favor? Aye. Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.